Hi folks. I've noticed that as I'm trying to do more videos, there's this urge when I do a video to try and summarize the last few videos. It's almost like, like a TV series or something like that, where you feel like you need to inform viewers about what just happened and then build on what needs to be built. The downside of it is it ends up being 10, 12 minutes of a recap, and I'm not really crazy about that. So I'll do a briefer recap, if a recap at all, and then let you guys go back as you need to. The last few videos have focused on the new moon in Gemini, which happened a little over a week ago, Mercury going direct, and Mercury is currently in Taurus, but it's going to move into Gemini on June the 13th, and also on the timelines associated with Mercury going direct and retrograde, as well as a Mercury cycle that was initiated on May the 21st when the Sun met up with the retrograde Mercury, and that's a Mercury cycle that takes us to September 23rd. And my last video was about this Mercury cycle. Now, one note about the Mercury cycle video in Gemini, which basically established, and the last few videos, as a reminder, have expressed the importance of the Gemini sign for the remainder of this year, because it's clear to me through this Mercury retrograde, but especially when Mars goes retrograde later this year and the timing of that retrograde, that the themes, but very, very possibly people associated with the Gemini portion of your chart, and by that I mean, and frequent visitors to this channel have heard me use this terminology before, the house that the sign of Gemini occupies in your chart, what that house stands for. People associated with that house may play an important role in the furtherance of the Taurus part of your chart, where the eclipses, North Node eclipses, are taking place, and where we are currently in the Taurus eclipse cycle. We had an eclipse, the solar eclipse in Taurus on April the 30th, and we have a corresponding lunar eclipse in Taurus on November the 8th. So we are in that eclipse cycle. And also, the same people or different people, but still associated with the Gemini portion of your chart, may play a role in what needs to be released and boundaries that need to be set in the Pisces part of your chart, and with the Scorpio South Node eclipses. And as I mentioned, some of the lessons that we're learning and we're being asked to learn with Saturn's presence in the Aquarius part of the chart has very much to do with Saturn in Aquarius. Those lessons are important in the development of the Taurus part of your chart, because all of last year Saturn and Uranus in Taurus were squaring each other. They're no longer squaring each other, but they're still planets, as they transit through Taurus, are in conversation with Saturn and square it. And the planets in Gemini, as the planets transit Gemini, they trine Saturn in Uranus, Saturn in Aquarius, and support, sorry about this, Mercury I'm acting like Mercury's retrograde. I'm going to let you guys watch the past few videos to get caught up in everything that I've been saying. I'm going to bring the attention back to the theme of this video. Oh, no, let me just... Aquarius is the part of the chart where we're being asked to step up. And Saturn is asking us to learn lessons, stop acting in ways that are no longer serving our purpose and our potential, and to learn the lessons that we need to learn and put the boundaries where they need to be. Now, sometimes these boundaries are boundaries that we're putting up. Sometimes these boundaries may be boundaries other people are feeling like they need to put up with us. So wherever those lessons are, okay? Pisces is the part of the chart. After Aquarius is the sign of Pisces where Neptune is. And here, as I've mentioned to you previously, there's some sort of a theme of possibly, unless it's a theme of artistic development, a spiritual development, or renunciation of some kind, there's a possibility of some kind of duplicitous behavior or thievery or deceit. Of course, my contact lens would be bothering me right now. That has been going on, or loss that has been going on since 2015, 2016, Neptune is there, and as planets transit through Gemini, they are going to square Neptune and trine Saturn in a significant way. Indeed, as planets, especially over the next 6 weeks or so, transit through Gemini, they're literally going to be squaring Neptune and trining Saturn within a day of each other, because the degrees that Neptune and Saturn are pretty much identical in their signs in Aquarius and Pisces respectively. We have a lot of activity in the sign of Aries. We have Mars in Aries. We have Chiron in Aries. And that is certainly contributing to what I will call this kind of prime mover energy that we have been feeling ever since Mars moved into Aries. So if we are feeling energetically, I would still say that the moon governs our energy on a day-to-day basis. Is it new? Is it quarter? Is it full? Where is it at, etc.? But if we're feeling a certain amount of gumption and go and directness in the pursuit of our goals, or in having conversations with people, or getting things clear and clarified moving forward, that's definitely a Mars and Aries energy. I'm being very, very reductive right now. But then when we come to Taurus, where we've got Venus and Uranus and the North Node and Mercury, that's where, as I said, that's where the current eclipse is. That's where we're meant to focus our energy. That's where we're being called upon to devote ourselves into that part of the chart. And when we come to the sign of Gemini, typically Gemini or any sign would experience the Sun and Mercury and Venus in relatively close proximity to each other, and while the Sun would be transiting, we'd experience a new moon or two new moons in that part of the chart. Well, this year, the fact that the Mercury retrograde cycle we just came through tied Taurus and Gemini together in terms of what it brought up, and the fact that Mars goes retrograde in Gemini later this year makes me feel like, as I said, the themes, but especially people associated with the Gemini part of your chart, are going to play an important role in the way that you are protecting yourself from whatever's been going on in the Pisces part of your chart, incorporating and learning lessons related to the Aquarius part of your chart, and supporting the development that needs to be supported in the Taurus part of your chart. It may be the same people, it may be different groups of people, but, you know, for example, if Gemini sits in your third house, then it could be relatives or siblings, but it doesn't have to be the same sibling or same set of relatives who are both helping, or neighbors, you know, or people that you're frequently, your community, in touch with on a day-to-day basis. You could have sections of those populations who are supporting you in the Taurus part of your chart, your second house, your sense of self-worth, your building an income, building your resources, building your security, but also there may be relatives, members of your community, neighbors, where you feel like you have to resolve certain things related to the past, or set up boundaries, or do some protection work around, or release work around, related to the Pisces and Scorpio parts of your chart. Okay, I said I would not do recaps, but here we are, and the past few videos will expand on these themes that I touched on. Well, today we're going to bring our attention back to the Taurus part of our chart. As I mentioned to you yesterday, there is a transit that is occurring tomorrow with Mercury trining Pluto. Mercury in Taurus. Mercury is getting ready to leave Taurus and re-enter Gemini this year. It went retrograde in Gemini, came back into Taurus, went direct in Taurus, and on the 13th of June, it's going to re-enter Gemini. Around the 16th, 18th, thereabouts, it's going to clear the shadow period of the Mercury retrograde. So one of the agenda items I would have for you to consider is whatever got brought up during the retrograde period, try and see if you can have conversations to dot the I and cross the T and learn the lessons and process what needs to be processed and incorporate what needs to be incorporated. And my last two videos will be very, very helpful for this. So you can go to that so that you can get to a place by the 16th to the 18th, or maybe even the 16th to the 8th, so that you are clear and have incorporated what needs to be incorporated and can move forward accordingly. The Taurus part of your chart, where the eclipses occurred, it's a new set of energies that made their presence felt as a reminder between September and November of 2021. And there have been developments that have been going on since then. It could even be that some of this Mercury retrograde energy, both in January, February, and that we just had in May and June, somehow brought us more information when Mercury was going retrograde around how to proceed in this Taurus part of our chart. But the Taurus part of our chart is where we're meant to lean into, develop, pour our energy into, grow, build the next rung of our foundation, of our home, of our ladder, of our life path, whatever you want to call it, our journey. And Mercury trined Pluto 3 times, or by the time tomorrow happens, we'll have trined Pluto 3 times, because Mercury, when it was direct the first time, trined Pluto on April 28th, went retrograde and trined Pluto again on May the 25th, and goes direct and trines Pluto on June the 10th. And on June the 13th, then it leaves Taurus to go into Gemini. Pluto is known as the planet of death and transformation. And with Pluto, as I've mentioned to you, especially with Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, we have much less control over these planetary forces. They act on us, and we incorporate whatever these transitions are. And with Pluto, there's no question about it. You know, it has a great deal of power as a result of the change. You are subject to Pluto's changes and transformation. Now, typically, I find that Pluto's transformations, however challenging I find in the work that I do, are constructive. So now, if you have a Capricorn ascendant, listen, I have seen my Capricorn ascendant friends and clients marry, divorce, lose partners to illness and death. The first house is so strongly in conversation with the 7th house. And it's an overall transformation of empowerment and coming into one's own. Now, different people are in different, and health. The 6th house is the first place that I would look to for health, no question. But I do look to the 1st house and the 12th house as well, and the 8th house. But the 1st house definitely, especially when it comes to structural issues, body, skin, bone, teeth, face. For some reason, for me, issues with structure, those things that we kind of associate with Saturn, for some reason will show up there. Well, they typically show up there because I'm talking about, often they show up there when it's a Saturn transit in the 1st house. Here we're talking about Pluto, so we're talking about a long-standing transformation that is occurring in a way that is fundamentally meant to be constructive. And so warning signs are given, crises occur. Pluto very much acts as a kind of a terrorist planet insofar as, or this kind of wrecking ball as a planet, where it just kind of relentlessly just kind of rips apart what it needs to rip apart. It's like one of those things that is sort of taking weeds along with it. That's kind of more like a tractor or a plow that is just kind of taking with it what it needs to take away with it to kind of leave what is essential behind, in a way that it continues to aerate us in our development. And with Mercury trining Pluto 3 times, there's no question in my mind that there's something communication related, communication, contractual, but let's just stick with communication with Mercury, that is occurring in the Taurus part of your chart that will contribute to this transformation that is occurring in Capricorn. So the Capricorn part of your chart is the one that has been going through this long-standing transformation, and the eclipses in Taurus, but also these transits in Taurus, specifically Mercury trining Pluto 3 times. Venus will trine Pluto on June the 21st. So these trines, Mars will square Pluto on July the 1st, but that's a separate video. But with these trines, there's something developing in the Taurus part of your chart through communication and opportunity that will further this transformation. Transformation is always change, always creates its stress and uncertainty, but ultimately, because it's happening in the sign of Taurus, where you're meant to lean and where you're meant to develop, it may have a sense of excitement and adventure and rightness about it. With the North Node eclipses and with the North Node, however right it may feel, I'm just going to encourage you to remain as grounded as possible, because the North Node has absolutely no regard for one's sense of material security in the pursuit of its desires. Now, ultimately, I do think that if you align with your North Node, you can experience, I'm just going to still go with, you'll experience rightness, and you can experience a stronger foundation, I think, of material security and success. But part of the challenge is with the North Node that we're here to learn whatever we're here to learn. We're not masters of our North Nodes. So we're constantly falling off the horse and climbing back on the horse, and falling off the horse and climbing back on the horse. So that creates its own kind of disturbance. Unless you become a total master of your North Node and the strategies associated with it in your birth chart with the eclipses, however right and exciting it feels to follow the North Node, it does mess with our stability. Okay, so just to have that awareness. So there could very well be transformation in the Capricorn part of your chart that is triggered by and further developed by communications in the Taurus part of your chart that have been going on, as I said, April 28th, May 25th, and June the 10th. And transformation could always mean ending something and creating a new beginning. So it could be ending something, creating a new beginning. Now, what is interesting is on June the 11th, Venus conjuncts Uranus also in Taurus. So there's something about these transits there's something exciting and interesting in the air. Now, if you are a Gemini rising or Gemini ascendant and these eclipses are happening in the 12th house, it's not going to be as exciting as these eclipses happening in the 5th house for, let's see, if Taurus is in the 5th house, then you would be Capricorn rising, for example. And by exciting, I mean it's just a different quality of the energy. Irrespective, Uranus is a planet that is very much associated. The word that I use for it, the words that are conventionally used for it are awakening and quantum leaps of sort of a higher octave of Mercury, understanding. I find Uranus is very closely associated with what I will call intuition. I know that sometimes that's given to Neptune, but with Neptune, it's really, for me, inspiration, as opposed to, and the dreamlike quality associated with inspiration, as opposed to intuitive knowing in your bones that kind of expands your mind and your understanding. And I find that when I'm dealing with charts of people who are highly intuitive, Uranus placements are prominent. The other thing with Uranus is people will use words like awakening. I use the word authenticity. And the thing about authenticity, and with this Venus conjunction, is what I will encourage you to think about is we sometimes lose touch with ourselves. So there's something, one of the words that associated with Uranus is rebelliousness, that comes from authenticity, that comes from getting in touch with who you are and what feels right for you in a certain way. And wherever Uranus transits, the house it transits, so this would be the house where Taurus sits, where we're having these North Node eclipses and we're having these shorter term transits of Mercury and currently Venus, and then Mars is going to come into it on the 5th of July. It makes that part of the chart truer to you in a way that may mean that there is a rebelliousness, a not going with conventional wisdom, not going with conventional hierarchy, not going with conventional rules. There's just, and the thing with authenticity that I want you to consider is that sometimes, especially when you have a transit like Venus conjuncting Uranus, after Mercury conjuncted Uranus sometime in April, and along with the Sun, and then, of course, we're going to have Mars coming into Taurus and so Mars will conjunct Uranus in July, early August. I don't have the exact date for that yet. Irrespective, sometimes it's Venus conjuncting Uranus. People might say conventionally, oh, you're going to meet someone and fall madly in love with them. Venus is a planet associated with love, Uranus with sudden happenings, or you'll break up with someone, or you'll get a huge financial gain or a huge financial opportunity. Or I want you to consider that may happen for some of you. I want you to consider that when it comes to authenticity, it's something that happens inside, with Uranus especially. It's a switch that's flipped. It's a self-recognition. It's a, oh, this is who I am. And I'd also become sort of hidden and obscured to myself. So now that I know that this is who I am, how am I going to transform the Taurus part of my chart? This transit, there's a design to this. The transits that are trining Pluto in Capricorn and the Venus conjuncting Uranus. This is why I kind of feel like something is in the air with regard to perhaps ending an old way of doing things, especially where in the Capricorn part of our chart. But there's something in the Taurus part of the chart that's triggering that. And with Venus conjuncting Uranus at the same time, there's an authenticity when it comes to relationships, when it comes to finances. With Venus, the word that I associate with Venus and that I see occur is opportunity. There's so much that's projected onto the divine feminine. And when it comes to the planets, so many of them are overwhelmingly masculine. The sun. Whenever we talk about Mercury, we rarely talk about Mercury. I know that it's supposed to be in a kind of hermaphroditic state. We rarely talk about Mercury in a feminine way. Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. I mean, really the feminine planets or the female planets of the moon and Venus. And if you take Gaia or the Earth, then we can go there. A lot of the female archetypes are kind of relegated to the fixed stars and not given a lot. And even then, when we talk about Venus, there's so much sort of male projection onto Venus, beauty, relationships, the feminine. I would love to see Venus more associated with flow, natural flow, abundance, our prime state. Where worth, and that's a word I associate with Venus a great deal too, self-worth, worth, is unsullied by conditioning. And I find that with Venus on a practical basis, whether it is relationships, whether it is a job, whether it is finances, whatever it is, it's an opportunity. Something may be brewing currently or coming up currently that you recognize, whether it manifests as something concrete or not yet. It's concrete enough inside of you where a switch is flipped to go, that's it. That's who I am in the Taurus part of the chart. That is where I'm going to develop. That is what I'm going to grow. And not only are we dealing with eclipses in Taurus, a complete eclipse cycle right now, and eclipse next year as well, Jupiter comes into Taurus next year and creates a new beginning there. So I would pay attention to what has been brewing in the Taurus part of your chart right now. I would also encourage you, if there's communications that you want to send out and develop and build after, now that Mercury's direct, as I mentioned to you, definitely try and do that by June the 13th, June the 16th. Venus is going to be there till June the 21st. So keep doing that. And as a reminder, the week before and after June the 30th, 2 months after the April 30th solar eclipse, is also an important 2 weeks related to the Taurus part of your chart. I am delighted to bring our attention back to the Taurus part of our chart. And conversations and relationships with the Gemini part of the chart and people and themes associated will be continuing over the next few weeks and even months to support the development of this Taurus part of your chart. Okay? Mercury trines Pluto tomorrow for the third time, and then Venus conjuncts Uranus in 2 days' time. So pay attention to opportunities and absolutely pay attention to what feels right and true to you even if right now it is showing up as a clear self-discovery. Okay? I will leave it at that. Feel free to forward to people if you like this, or share it. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Click on the bell icon next to the subscribe button to be notified whenever I do new videos, and I will leave it at that. Thank you for the comments. Gosh, I've been looking at some of the recent ones. They are very kind and sweet and flattering. And by the way, if you leave a comment that gets deleted, just know that it's not me doing it. I don't know quite how that happens. Anyway, I'll respond to them eventually. But I want to appreciate my gratitude to people who see my videos all the time. Thank you. Bye.